You sound pretty good, man. You sound pretty good.
I mean, good.
Ooh, I know where to add tags too. Hot diggity damn.
Hot dog. Added the tags. My wife just sent me a picture off of Instagram that talks about how long you should like rest meat to preserve juiciness.
Oh, isn't it like 5-10 minutes?
So this picture from Cooks Illustrated's Instagram, not a sponsor. So it says, "Don't worry, your bird," meaning a turkey, as in Thanksgiving. Don't worry, your bird will still be hot even after 40 minutes of resting. But then it has all these like vials that show how much juice was came out of the turkey based on slicing time. So it's like 3.5 vials of juice if you sliced it immediately. 1.5 after 10 minutes. About like 0.8 after 20 minutes. And after 30 minutes, it's like 20% of a vial. So if you rest your bird for 30 to 40 minutes, it's going to be much juicier.
Wow.
So much juicier.
That's good to know.
And that information brought to you by Instagram.
I never knew that before, and I'm really glad I know it now.
Are you making a turkey?
No, I'm working on Thanksgiving Day.
Hot dog.
No hot dogs. No hot dogs. No turkey. No, I'm working that day. So I'll probably stock up on Wednesday with some Cheez-Its and maybe a Lunchable, and take that into the office.
I had a Cheez-It Duos box of jalapeno and Jack Cheddar combo box. It was pretty good. It slaps, as the kids say.
they do say that. They've always said that.
Yeah, I mean, always. It transcends generations.
Early Spartan kids, they used to send them out into the mountains to fight wolves or whatever they did, and then they'd be like, "For Sparta!" and one of the other kids like, "Hey man, that slaps."
Yeah, he talks like this. Are you recording yet?
No, I didn't start recording yet, man. You want me to start? You want to start recording?
I don't know. You ready to start?
Yeah, I can start.
All right, I'll start too. And look at that, we started. We started recording.
Boom! I'm recording now.
Boom! All right. Well, then I guess
no stopping me.
I guess the existence of this podcast rests in your hands.
I'm gonna quit Discord. I'm gonna quit Spotify. Free up some space.
Quit Instagram.
Quit Instagram. And I'm ready to go. If you're ready to go, I'm ready to go.
Lay it on me.
Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast from Apathetic Enthusiasm.
Oops, wrong one.
You asked for it. Here it is. It's a podcast from Apathetic Enthusiasm.
On this episode of the show, we are going back to our childhood with Animaniacs and seeking the truth with truth seekers.
After these messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Travis.
Hey everybody, I'm Brandon, and welcome to Apathetic Enthusiasm, your bi-weekly, fortnightly show talking about the things that we're up to in daily lives. That's right, Brandon and Travis, your two lovable, wild, zany-brained hosts who live in a water tower on the Warner Brothers lot.
Yeah, we live on the Paramount lot, actually.
The Paramount lot.
Paramount. Yeah, I'm doing great. Great start, guys. Hey, welcome to the show.
I live on the TriStar Pictures lot.
MGM backlot. That's where I'm at. Now Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. So okay,
hey everybody.
Hey. Let's talk about this for a second. Okay. We've got social media links and all that stuff. We'll get to in a minute. Brandon, you've lived in Florida for several years now.
Mm-hmm. You see the beach behind me.
You've lived about an hour and a half away from what my family would probably categorize as one of our top 3, if you depending on who you ask, number 1 vacation destinations, and that is Walt Disney World resorts. And you have gone there a sum total of how many times?
I've gone to Disney Springs twice.
Yeah.
Here, well, I mean, yeah, you know why I've only been there twice to Disney Springs.
Coronavirus.
You're right. Our when we first got here to Florida, my son was 6. He wasn't very tall. He wasn't big enough yet.
Going to be a baller. He didn't have a girl with a phone so he could call her.
Well, it wasn't tall enough for a lot of the rides. So what we did, because there's so many amusement parks out here, we were like, let's start with something small. Let's start with Legoland.
Yeah.
And we started with Legoland. Legoland sucks. It's got some interesting stuff.
It's got its
charms.
Its charms. That's the perfect thing to say. Yes, it's got its charms.
In when you go to Legoland, I'll do just a quick aside into Legoland. When you go there, you're like, oh, they're gonna have so many cool Lego things to sell, like unique, special things that Legoland only will sell to folks. Well, like Legoland doesn't really belong to Lego, so that doesn't happen. Like there's not you get better special kits from Disney Springs at the Lego
store. Yes.
Yes. Anyways, so Legoland. So we got season passes for that. And we went a couple times, and it was like, oh, okay. After the second time, you're like, I really didn't need to do this more than once. The next year, we got passes to Universal, and so that's what we had this last year.
Yeah.
And we went a bunch, and we
took advantage of that. I can't fault you for that. I can't.
Yeah. And so this was the year, 2020 was the year that we were going to get season passes to go to Disney World and take advantage of that, do our last year and a half at Disney World. Well, coronavirus happened, parks shut down for the most part. You can still go there.
I mean, they've been open for months, but whatever.
We need like an appointment and stuff like that. We know some folks who still have passes, and they stop their passes. So our goal is to go there before we leave Florida at least once.
Thank you.
Because I will never come out here to Florida again if I can help it.
Fair. My family already wants to go back to Disney World, but yeah, I know Florida isn't the only place in the world for Disney theme parks, but and growing up as a Southern California Disney fan, Disneyland is home for me. But man, there are some outstanding parks in Florida.
Yeah, in a field.
They're just they have
outstanding in a field.
Outstanding in their field. All right. If you want to tell us about your favorite Florida theme park situations or anything else that you want to talk about, there are plenty of ways that you can get a hold of us. You can tweet at us. I'm at Jugglemino. He's at Barnyard Cruise. We collectively are at Apathusiast. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Apathetic Enthusiasm Show. Send us an email, apatheticenthusiasmshow@gmail.com, or Instagram, apathetic_enthusiasm. All of our shows, everything that we make, can be found at apatheticenthusiasm.com. If you are watching live right now, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you. You can watch Monday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/apatheticenthusiasm or over on YouTube, youtube.com/apatheticenthusiasm. And then we have merch. You can get our Rick and Morty curated t-shirts as well as some interdimensional RSS shirts over at apatheticenthusiasm.com/shop, or go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/apatheticenthusiasm, where you can support the show, get bonus content, all sorts of fun stuff going on over there. If you are watching live or watching not live and later at some time in the future, and you're wondering why our surroundings look a little bit different, that is because there was a professional football game that took place about 2 weeks ago when we were not recording in Apathetic Enthusiasm. I guess it was a week ago, just over a week. And Brandon and my favorite teams were playing each other, and so we had a gentleman's agreement, a wager, if you will, to put a little bit of incentive on the winner of that game. And so we decided last minute, like a couple hours before kickoff, that whoever's team won, we would reskin the layout for this episode based on the colors of our favorite team. And Brandon's team definitely won. There's no doubt really that your team is going to win.
I want to say, I'm looking at this overlay, Travis. I'm like looking around, right? Oh, whoa, whoa. It looks fantastic. I gotta say, that when you set up your new overlay for your puzzle pieces, your puzzle piece stream,
the Corn stream puzzle cast 2020,
your puzzle Corn stream, that I was like, oh, you know what? He developed some skills. He boosted his skills to do that, to get his DSLR camera going. That, you know what? He's gonna make the best Dolphins overlay that I've ever seen.
Or whatever unofficial team that we're not gonna get in trouble. We're not gonna get in trouble. Nobody watches this.
The Diami Molfins.
The Diami Molfins.
It looks good. Congratulations to the Diami Molfins for their win.
And Garage Dolphin always is a fan anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Huge throwback. Don't worry, guys. This layout will be gone by the next episode. So. Or I'll just turn it off. Like it'll always be there, but you just won't see it. Right? It'll just be like, is it there? Is it not? I don't know. We'll see.
I didn't watch football. We didn't watch football yesterday. Well, I didn't anyway. So I guess the Dolphins lost to the Broncos. I guess that's what happened.
I think that's what Matt might be alluding to. But anyway, yeah.
Whatever. Bordinko, my buddy, Tampa Bay, go Bucks. Yeah. Hey, I'm here now. I'm okay with them winning.
The Chargers played the Jets. So if they didn't win that game, I would rethink everything about my following of football. But fortunately, they managed to get like their third win or something ridiculous. It's a rebuilding year, rookie quarterback. Anyway, this is not what we're here.
I'm gonna ban Matt. I'm gonna ban Matt from the chat. Just one sec.
Can we just moderate him right out of here real quick?
Yeah, I'm gonna moderate any word of Broncos and Denver out of the chat, and also have a good day face.
That's
okay.
Yeah. That's all wise. We do have a couple of new shows. New, I think, is Truth Seekers new? Yeah.
Truth Seekers is new. Yeah. You want to talk about? You want to talk about that?
You want to talk about Truth Seekers first? Let's talk about that. First.
Yeah. Let's talk about Truth Seekers first. So, I'm a big Simon Pegg, Nick Frost fan, and I heard about this show that came out on Amazon Prime just about a week and some change ago, and I saw it and I wasn't super excited about it. I don't know why. Like anytime a new Nick Frost Simon Pegg thing comes out, I'm not immediately excited about it, but then I watch it and then I enjoy the heck out of it. This was another example of that. And Chelsea was actually like, "Hey, do you want to watch this Truth Seeker show?" And I hesitantly said, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll watch it." Watched the first episode. I wasn't super impressed at first, and then it got more into it. And then by the end of the weekend, we had finished watching it. It's only 8 episodes, 30 minutes each, so it's a real quick watch. Stars Nick Frost. Simon Pegg is there as he's not one of the main stars of it, but he's a common cast member.
Still
Malcolm
given
McDowell.
significantly higher billing than some of the other people that are on the show regularly. But yeah.
Yeah. It was created by Frost Peg and Nat Saunders. But yeah. So did you hear about the show before I brought it up to you?
Not enough to retain memory about it.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I saw something about it. I was like, oh, cool, it's them. And then not until you're like, hey, Truth Seekers, you should check that out. It was like, oh, let me look this up. And I was like, oh, this is a thing with them.
right. And then you're like, well, Brandon says I should watch it. He watched the entire thing, and he doesn't watch shows through their entirety normally. So I'll give it a shot. Actually, I told you to watch it today.
And I was quarantined and teleworking, and was like, well, yeah, I'll turn it on. It's not like I'm going anywhere. So, and well, you're like, hey, what are we talking about tonight? You should watch the Truth Seekers show. That is our format, guys. That is how this show happens.
That is behind the curtain. So Truth Seekers. Nick Frost plays Gus Roberts. He's the kind of main character. And Simon Pegg is the boss of the company that he works for. He's basically a Wi-Fi technician. Frontier, AT&T, DirecTV, whatever.
Their company's called Smile.
Yeah. Broadband specialist.
Yeah, exactly.
And it centers around his interest in the supernatural. He has a YouTube channel where he goes to haunted places in England as a truth seeker. He gets a new coworker played by Samson Kayo, who plays a man named Elton John.
Right. Yeah.
And his unwillingness to work with this guy at first, but then them discovering actual haunted places. Eventually, there's a young girl named Astrid who shows up, and then the mystery kind of unfolds from there. So, Travis, what did you think of this first episode?
The first episode I thought was a solid sort of pilot, if you will. It sets the tone for the show really well. Much like, your Shaun of the Dead or I don't know, what are some other examples of what's the other one?
At World's End?
No.
Hot Fuzz?
Hot Fuzz. That's the one I'm thinking of. Where they kind of blend like horror and comedy. It's not taking itself too seriously, but it's enough to where, and it's weird because it sits in like this gray area, right? Where it's not like super funny comedy, but it's also not like super scary horror. It's just kind of like, yeah, we're gonna do both of these. We're gonna take them both seriously. We're not gonna like half do it, but it just kind of is like makes this little blend where you're like, oh, this is funny, but also like I wasn't sitting there like busting up laughing all the time, but I also wasn't like, oh, I need to go change my sweatpants because this is so scary. So it was good. The effects were really good, but immediately from watching the first episode, I felt like the quality of the show was similar to like a Hot Fuzz or, that sort of thing. And just sort of its feel. And obviously having Nick Frost and Simon Pegg are gonna add to that. So.
Yeah. Well, Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, At World's End, those were directed by Edgar Wright, who took a big part in those stories as well. And so, like some of the direction in Truth Seekers, it doesn't have that kind of kinetic energy that Edgar Wright brings in his directing, but it still has some of the writing and the humor behind it. But you're right, it's not laugh out loud funny in that way.
Which it's British humor too, right? So it's not always laugh out loud funny.
Yeah. The Nick Frost character, when he's first introduced in the first half of that first episode, he feels kind of like that the one SNL character, the IT guy, like the move.
Oh,
Yeah,
like is it like Nick Burns, your office's computer guy, or something like that? Yeah, something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. Like kind of felt that, and it almost it felt a little, and at first, a bit cliched on it. But as the episode went on and he started opening up with some of that, the mystery, there's a signal that's broadcast that just repeats numbers, the same number over and over again. And uh, when the partner, Elton John, comes in, then all of a sudden that number doesn't repeat the same way anymore. And it starts showing starts saying a sequence of number over this one broadcast on the radio, like kickstarting, like, okay, well, what's there's actual supernatural stuff going on, and that's when I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to check out the rest of it. Well,
That was one of my favorite things about the premise of the show is the idea of Nick Frost's character being a YouTube paranormal ghost hunter type guy who notoriously, like, those guys seem to like make a big deal out of stuff that may or may not actually be haunted, but then marrying that with at least the audience's perspective of knowing that there are actual paranormal things happening, and how he is able to actually interact with those. And then, like, early on, there's times when he's like, oh, this is haunted because of this or whatever, and it's like definitely not the case. That's not what's happening, but like you can kind of see as things are unfolding. The other thing I really like about this, and I sort of it comes up more and more as the show goes on, but in the first couple episodes, this sort of blending of technology with the paranormal, where
oh yeah,
like there you have instances of, like nanobots and people getting like absorbed into old-timey radios and all kinds of stuff like that, and how that's used to kind of express stuff that's happening with these ghosts or different things like that.
yeah.
And with that, a lot of the images of some of the ghosts, the way that they're shown on screen, have sort of like a glitchy, almost like busted like computer type of look, where they don't just look like blurry. They have like almost like jagged lines going through them that look like a glitch from like a computer or something. And just for that style, I thought was a cool decision.
Yeah. I as the season goes on, that combination of the supernatural and technology continues. That thematic tech blend continues to occur, and I agree with you. Like that piece of it really stood out to me. Really interesting, especially like the numbers, when the numbers started repeating. Chelsea's like, "Are we watching Lost? Is this why you actually like the show?"
Me and my kid are up to season 2.
Yeah. Bordinko in the chat mentioning, sounds like them ghosts need DevOps.
Don't I know it? Can we get some iteration planning meetings and a retrospective? Am I right? Can we have a ghost retrospective?
Can we do this? Can we do? Look, where's the ghost product owner to set up the backlog?
This is dumb. This is a dumb conversation. We need to move on.
Anyway, so I'll you got what, 3 episodes into it before you?
I've watched 4, so I'm about halfway through.
Okay.
Just got through the episode where they attend the con or whatever. The comic convention.
Con.
Yeah. Which I will say, that's the other part about this show that I will credit it. It's not just riding on the idea of jump scares or having scary stuff happen. Like the character development and like getting to know about some of these characters. There's a lot of stuff in it that is endearing and makes you care about the characters a little bit more. So I'm interested in watching the last 4 episodes. Certain shows we watch just to talk about on the podcast, and then I never revisit them again. Looking at you, B stars. Sorry, Sire Dark.
Sorry. Yeah.
But I will probably finish Truth Seekers, and see what ends up happening, at least by the end of this first season.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I look forward to a season 2. When the season ended, we're like, oh, my kid was like, oh. Some notable guest stars, Kelly MacDonald, who she Merida in Brave. She did the voice of.
Oh, okay.
And she's also the wife in There Will Be Not There Will Be Blood, No Country for Old Men. What kind of weird stretch?
I haven't seen that movie in since it was in Oscar contention. So yeah, I don't remember a lot about it.
And if you're a fan of the ye old the Mighty Boosh, Julian Barrett is in the latter half of the season as Dr. Peter Toynbee. And I pointed him out, and I've only seen like 2 episodes of the Mighty Boosh, one of them being with Old Greg.
This is as close to Bailey's as you can get without getting your eyes wet.
And I pointed him out to Chelsea. She's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." She wants to start watch Mighty Boosh with me, and I'm inclined to watch it with her. So anyway, overall, I really like the show, and I think I recommend it to folks who like Nick Frost and Simon Pegg and the supernatural. Because it's not super scary, but it's got a good story to it. And Malcolm McDowell played like the relationship between him and Nick Frost. He plays he plays Nick Frost's dad, which you find out more about later. So, anyways, recommend. Travis, recommend?
Yeah, I'll recommend it.
Sweet. All right, that is our stamp of approval.
Cool, we got audio drops now. The show is taking off.
If it gets our stamp of approval, we're gonna change it to this guy. Yeah. All right. Yes. Yes. And if it doesn't get approval, the crickets. Those are the only drops I have programmed.
Okay, all right. Well, now that we've taken care of all of those, let's get into our second featured topic for the evening. This is another show that is available for streaming, this time over on Hulu. We are, of course, talking about the reboot of a cartoon from my childhood, the Animaniacs. Now back on Hulu. Brandon, first off, I want you to just talk for a minute about your experience with Animaniacs, the OG Animaniacs. Were you a fan? Did you watch it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you too cool for that old school?
Did I love it? Did I watch it? Oh, look at all this Animaniacs merch I have in the back. Just kidding. I don't actually have any. I saw the Pops a couple months back, and I had bought so many damn Rick and Morty ones that I'm like, I can't justify buying any more. But if I see the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror Pops, I'm on it. But I lie. I didn't buy the one that I saw that I really whatever.
All right,
moving on. Animaniacs. When in that heyday of Warner Brothers Animation, you'd come home from school, afternoon. What's on the TV? You could KCAL 9 was what I had in Los Angeles, and that's where you would have all the Disney stuff, the Disney block animation. So you'd have Darkwing Duck, which I love the hell out of. But then like later in the 90s, they started moving away into like was that one Marsupilami, and then there's one like weird animated thing that had was like a cop or something like that.
Are you talking
I,
about Rescue Rangers? Chip and Dale?
no, no, I'm not talking about Rescue Rangers. No, I watched Rescue Rangers. No, no, Tailspin, and but no, like uh, Bonkers or something like that. I
Oh,
don't.
Bonkers. Yeah, yeah. I never watched
Yeah,
that show. I never
yeah,
watched it.
exactly. So I was starting to move. I was starting to move away from those shows, moving over to the WB Tiny Toon Adventures, and Batman the Animated Series drew me heavily to that channel. By the way, Gargoyles was over on Disney, and I didn't really get into that as well.
Yeah, Gargoyles apparently is like loved by its fans, and a lot of people think it's very underrepresented. I think you can watch it on Disney Plus. Have not gone back to visit that and give it its
Have,
due, but yeah.
have not. Maybe we should, but I'm not doing it today. I'm still segueing into talking about
into Animaniacs. Yeah.
Tiny Toon Adventures, Batman animated series. Bordinko mentioning Freakazoid, of course. Freakazoid was my thing. Uh, yeah. Paul Rudd does voice Freakazoid, but then Animaniacs, like it was it was in the transition of my life where that was the humor that referential humor was really sticking to me, and so I love the hell out of Animaniacs. I watched the hell out of it along with Batman animated series. Well, I mean, what about you? Like, was that something that did you focus on Animaniacs a lot, or were you still watching Rugrats on Nickelodeon?
No, I watched a
Uh,
lot of Animaniacs. I that for me, my family went through phases where like we did have cable, we didn't. Like it wasn't a constant in my house. So like blocks of animation on the WB, I mean, that's a staple for me, right? So yeah, I definitely liked Animaniacs. I loved the humor of it. The just sort of like, I don't know, meta comedy for it. It was really appealing to me. And to this day, I will think back to the Animaniacs, think back to certain clips, certain, uh, you know, the countries of the world, the states and their capitals, like those
yeah,
songs, like I used to teach my kids like stuff about the world. Like, so, yeah, it's just certain aspects of the Animaniacs have just always held a special place in my heart. And it was kind of in those years where I was like starting to get to be at a point where I was maybe a little too old to be watching cartoons. But, like I was still like, no, this is great. And I don't think that there was ever a point in my life where I was going to outgrow animation and cartoons. So, points at Rick and Morty podcast. Uh, so yeah, I think I always enjoyed it. And so when I heard that they were going to reboot the show on Hulu, I was excited. My kids were excited because they'd already started watching a little bit of the original series, and yeah, so everybody's excited for it to come out on Hulu. And I watched 3, 4, maybe 4 episodes so far, and I think there's like a whole block of, I think 10 episodes that all
yeah.
got released, maybe 13 actually. In this first season, so
I know there's more than 8. There's more than Truth Seekers.
There's more than Truth Seekers. Nick Frost, get your act together.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I saw the announcement a couple like a month or so ago, with the Jurassic Park kind of gag, and then the animated Spielberg saying that's coming back. His name is executive producer. It's still on it.
Yep.
By the way, not voiced by Spielberg. They got a voice actor to do Spielberg. Like, come on, Spielberg. The last thing I watched of yours was BFG, and it's still not a great movie.
What's the last movie Spielberg made?
What what was it? The Ready Player One? Was that the? Maybe he made something after that. Yeah.
We're gonna find out. I just pulled up his filmography.
Okay, I will give you an extra second.
Ready Player One was the last one. Very good. Do you care to guess what his next project is, releasing in 2021 potentially? Originally supposed to be released December 18th, 2020.
I do not know offhand. What is it?
West Side Story.
Huh. Well,
Yeah.
so Animaniacs. The thing about
it's
it is
co-produced anyway. Co-produced by, but he has director credit on there apparently. So anyway, Animaniacs.
So yeah, I saw that Jurassic Park intro, a couple weeks back, whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll check it out. Not super excited about it, but interested enough that I would watch a couple episodes. And so this weekend it released. I watched a couple episodes. I think we just watched the fourth or fifth episode of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that jumps out at me is they maintain a zaniness, and whereas Yakko, Wacko, and Dot are zany and they're referential and they're meta. They're doing all that stuff. The only other segments that are there, and remember, in the 90s, you had like the Good Feathers, you had Mindy and the dog Buttons, yeah, Minnie Buttons.
Mm-hmm.
You had Good Idea, Bad Idea.
A classic sketch. Which did you notice in I think the third or fourth episode, the mime from Good Idea, Bad Idea making an appearance?
Oh, I didn't notice.
Yeah, he's drawn in the background of one of those. Yeah. I was like, hey, it's him. Yeah.
Yeah. Bordinko mentions the Dr. Scratch and Sniff. He hasn't made an appearance yet.
Although Rob Paulson is credited as the voice of Yakko, Pinky, and Dr. Scratch and Sniff for the 2020 version of the show. So I don't know if he's going to make an appearance or not.
He may be. He I mean, we haven't finished the season yet, so very well could appear.
Yeah.
But yeah, there aren't those other segments of the show. It's just Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. Yeah. Pinky and the Brain feels as it doesn't feel like it skipped a beat at all with those segments so far in the show. Again, 5 episodes in, it feels like it is just as in place now as it was in the 90s. Like it's good. I really enjoyed Pinky and the Brain, and I was one of the folks who when Pinky and the Brain became its own show, I was like, okay, nope.
Yeah, I watched a few episodes as a kid, and then I was like, all right, I don't know if I can do a full 22 minutes of Pinky and the Brain. Like, yeah, I will say it's
like when Metalocalypse went to 30 minutes. So yeah, you don't know that.
No. I will say the Pinky and the Brain sketches for this reboot haven't been my favorite. There's been some good stuff in there. I thought it was interesting that the way that they brought them like from the 90s to now was that Pinky or the Brain was spending that whole time inventing the internet and creating this internet where everybody's on their phones becoming these zombies. I thought that was a nice touch. But after, that first episode, it kind of just rolls into that same episodic, what are we going to do tonight, Pinky? Or, try to take over the world, everything, right? So
that episode of him creating the internet and the Seth Meyers, that got the biggest laugh out of me.
The Seth Meyers part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Seth Meyers he's got a big smile, and then at some point in time, it's already an exaggerated huge smile, and then he smiles more, very very slowly, and I don't remember what happened the next 30 seconds of that episode because I was still laughing so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it interesting because they set up the premise from the theme song, right? The theme song has been rewritten. It has been modernized. Obviously, they had to rewrite it a little bit to take out the fact that all of those, good feathers and stuff aren't going to be in it. So they had to rewrite those parts. But they've modernized it a little bit. They're now gender neutral, something, ethically, no ethical biases. I forget the other non-binary, I think is what they say.
Chelsea, when the second episode we listened to the theme song, she's like, "Wait, wasn't it Dot is cute in Yakko Yaks or Wacko?"
It was.
Yeah,
and now it's Dot has wit and Yakko Yaks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The other big thing about the theme song that it sticks out to me. I don't know if you noticed that. The theme song used to say, "It's time for Animaniacs." But now, listen to it, and you won't be able to unhear it. Now they say, "It's time for Animaniacs." Listen.
Annie instead of Annie.
Annie, not Anna. Annie.
Get out. Get out.
You won't unhear it.
Yeah. I probably won't.
No
Bill Clinton. Although there is some saxophone playing, I think, in the first episode.
Yeah.
But it is very interesting to me, and I think this is a part of the core discussion for this show, is you are creating an animated program that should appeal to kids in 2020. Obviously, you want to mimic the format that got you where you were in the success of the 90s. But you also have to realize that your original audience that watched you in the 90s is now in their 30s, potentially in their 40s. So who are you making the show for? Do you strictly appeal to the kids, or do you create a show that also has appeal for an older audience? They've clearly tried to hit the entire demographic with the political commentary, I will say, that is at least very present in the first 4 episodes, and I would assume carries on even further. How do you feel about that? Like, I know now, again, I'm in quarantine from my family right now, so I'm not watching the show with my family, so I can't really say when I laugh at a joke about that's making a political statement, I can't look over at my kids and be like, eh?
You get it? You get it?
But I know my family was watching it, and I was FaceTiming with them, and my wife was laughing at a bunch of different things. She's like, "Oh gosh, I can't believe some of the stuff they're talking about."
Well, as I answer this, I want to reach out to Bordinka because my buddy Brian he sent us a tweet before the show started. He's watching it with his boys, the first 4 episodes, and says it's biting satire. So I want to ask him, since he's out there, do your kids are your kids tracking it? He points out the bunny episode here in chat.
Yep.
That is the last episode I watched. So what I will say is Chelsea and I didn't get the metaphor at first. They said bun. They kept saying buns. I was like, is this going to turn into a sexual thing the entire time? And then eventually I was like, oh, bun control. Okay, duh.
A bun buyback program in Australia.
Right.
There's a point when it gets very hard to miss.
Yeah,
it's not satire.
Dot says, veiled metaphor. I'm like, there's nothing veiled about that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the episode, talking to the kid, the 8-year-old, he's like, what is she talking about? Veiled metaphor. Like, oh, okay. He didn't get that part of it. He didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't understand the nuance of gun control and an Australian gun buyback program. So I think that is, you know, for a certain threshold of age, I think you could still get away with that. And then when you maybe 12, I don't know, there comes a time where like, oh yeah, I see what they're doing. Even though I'm a young kid, I know that they're trying to say something politically. Okay, yeah. Bordiga says they didn't even pick up on Trump as the monster. Uh, yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah. The Cyclops in the Odyssey bit, um, the demagogue mix up, which I thought was like that was the first thing that I saw where I was just like, oh my gosh, like they're really not pulling punches with this show. Like, yeah, my kids probably would not pick up on that. They might have been like, he looks kind of like Trump at their age, but nobody else in my house like knows what demagogue means just based on what Dot says, right? So
we had Alexa define demagogue for the family, for Chelsea and the kid.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm trying to, but you know, let's just let the smart.
Let's let Webster spell it out for you. But yeah.
But I don't remember in the early seasons anyway of Animaniacs.
Animaniacs?
Leaning that heavily into the political kind of commentary.
Sure.
Political commentary. What I remember most of it is.
I mean, it had Bill Clinton playing a saxophone in the intro, so I mean, yeah. Obviously there was stuff there.
The episode where they are ancient gods, and when they're going up against the Arnold Schwarzenegger impression at the Olympics, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the episodes that I recall, like the making fun of actors in Hollywood and that kind of references, more so than it was let's make fun of a one-eyed president.
Bordinko saying in the chat that there is a lot of commentary there if you rewatch it, which honestly, watching these episodes makes you want to go back and rewatch some of it and be like, what went over my head as a kid that I might pick up on now? Because now that I'm, a generation older and on the other side of that coin, it's really interesting to like, what did all the adults think of that show back in the 90s?
I watched an episode that was about Ernest Hemingway, and like what a figure to have a kids show about, right? Old man in the sea and how he ended his own life, right? And it's just like. So clearly there's a lot of that stuff that we missed, and I think having it be so focused, so available now in 2020, and available for folks to watch, compact and binge worthy in basically one day, I think that makes it feel a little bit more in your face than maybe it was when you were a kid, right? And it was on the WB in the afternoon when parents were at work.
Yeah.
And it's not after school when you're a kid and you're coming.
And you're not streaming it as a family, right? Or whatever. Like it's, the kid watches his cartoons when he gets home from school while he's doing his long division. And then, we all have tacos or whatever, like.
Mm-hmm. Typical taco.
Classic.
Animaniacs Taco Day.
Classic Taco Day. I think I'm going to keep watching. I'm not going to like binge watch it, but I'll probably check out some more of these episodes, see how long that thinly veiled satire persists and see what else comes out of it. What do you think about the art style? Do you feel like it is In line with the 90s, do you think that they are trying too hard to match the 90s, or do you think they're kind of taking it in its own direction?
I don't really notice any major difference. Like it's obviously it's the animation style has shifted since the mid '90s, and computers are what we use for animation now.
Yeah.
And, but I to me, other than the Jurassic Park intro, everything feels like it's seamless enough. Like it's modernized in the same way that like The Simpsons eventually modernized.
Sure.
It's different animation, but it feels like the old animation still.
Yeah.
To me,
the use of like caricature, in terms of like the way they're drawing a lot of like human characters, for a lot of characters, I feel like it works. For some, I feel like it goes almost a bit too far, where it makes it like almost hard to look at some of the characters where in some of the models. But
Chelsea observed that there's a lot of nipples. There's lots of nipples going on.
There is. I don't know if there's been an episode without nipples. If I'm being honest,
that's the remakes. Really claim to fame is nipple.
Good old
viewing.
2020, the nipple season of Animaniacs.
The other thing that Chelsea pointed out that she's having trouble getting past is that they leaned heavily into it in the first episode, which makes sense because they're explaining that it's a reboot and they're coming back, and then talking about money and selling out and pointing out that they're selling out. It's kind of like when I meet new people and I talk shit about myself for the first week and a half, just so they don't get any idea that I think I'm better than I am.
Yeah, and then you prove it.
And then and then I just laid on them just one of the days. But that's kind of how she feels about the Animaniacs, in the sense that like they're pointing out that they're selling out over and over again, so that they're like, see, look, we're hip because we're getting paid a lot of money for this. I don't necessarily mind it, but how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with it. I feel like some of the better jokes in the first episodes were about them selling out and getting their giant check from Hulu, or the giant Hulu logo spelled out in money behind them. I don't know. Those cracked me up. I liked them. So
it's always been a part of the theme song, right? Like even in the original one, we have pay or play contracts, right?
Yeah.
That's always been a gag about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm fine with it. If it the only thing I would say is if anything becomes too repetitive, or they go back to that well too many times, then I'm gonna be like, all right, like we get it. Hulu paid you a grip of cash. I pay Hulu a grip of cash every month for my live TV account, which they are now increasing by $10 because they have to pay the Animaniacs so much. So, you know what? Maybe rub it in my face, Yakko, every time you come out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
maybe stop rubbing it in my effing face. Yeah. I think that this show. It's funny. It's made me laugh more than once. The voices, for the most part, Brain, Maurice LaMarche, and Pinky are still pretty good. I'll say sometimes their rehashed voices of Yakko, Wacko, and Dot are sometimes slip into a version that isn't what they used to sound like.
I'd agree. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially Wacko, Jess Harnell, but still, like it captures their essence. Still, they're zany, they're wild, they pull through the turns. Their prowess is potent and secretly stern.
It's speed for the finish. The flags go down.
I dig the show. Ultimately, I think if you are not a conservative, then you'll enjoy.
Yeah, that is something that I I was interested in is, does the show alienate a conservative base? You know, like I don't, frankly, all right. If you feel certain ways politically, and the Animaniacs bother you, well, all right, then you're probably not a fan of this show either. But yeah, I was curious to see like how does that play out? And I don't know, maybe a bunch of young Republicans grew up loving Animaniacs, and now they're like, hey, it's back. They're like, oh gosh, what do I feel about things? It's really funny how your memory of something is like loose.
Yeah.
And it's not until someone brings something right up to the forefront and shows it to you that you realize, oh wow, that is different. I was scrolling on the Animaniacs 2020 Wikipedia page, and there's an image on here of the original Animaniacs models of the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister Dot, and it's placed directly beside the new animation, the new characters, and there are stark differences. I mean, obviously, like Yakko has pants on, Dot has a pink skirt and a flower in her hair, but like just the shape of the way that they're drawn a little bit, like some of the details and everything. It is like they're different looking, but because like the red hat and the blue shirt are there on Wacko, like all the rest of the details just kind of are fine. Like
yeah, it's like Mario in the original game versus Super Mario Galaxy, where he's a bee. Like you know that it's Mario because of the hat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's recognizable.
Because of the hat. Anyway, yeah, if you are a fan of the original Animaniacs, I recommend checking it out on Hulu. If you have really conservative political views, be warned. But otherwise, but I think the show's pretty good. I think kids are gonna like it. And it really reignites that 90s golden era of TV animation now for a new streaming audience. So it's good stuff.
Which is why I'm excited to announce the reboot of Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster and Babs Rabbit, Hampton, Plucky Duck.
Could you imagine if they used this podcast of all things to announce the reboot of Tiny Toon Adventures?
That, man, they paid us so much money for it.
Just the worst market research ever.
Got no return on investment in any way, shape, or form.
Jeez. Well,
laughing our way to the bank.
Exactly. All right. Well, that is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you're watching live, please don't go anywhere. We will stick around for a podcast post-show streaming exclusive where we'll hang out, maybe talk a little bit about our almost 6-hour-long D&D adventure from this last weekend. I have some thoughts on that I'd like to discuss. So if you want to catch that or any of our video versions of the podcast, make sure you head over to youtube.com/apathetic enthusiasm, where you can catch pretty much anything we stream. We usually don't delete anything off of there. Or catch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/apathetic enthusiasm. If you're listening, thank you guys for joining us. Make sure to rate, review this podcast if you have not done that yet. We love you. You're wonderful. And until next time, I'm Travis.
And I am Brandon, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. We're gonna talk some D&D.
D&D.
On Saturday Night Live.
All right. So I want to tell you, Travis. By the way, thank you everyone for listening. So Brian is before we started playing D&D, he was the one I reached out to first, and I was like, "Hey, we're gonna try to start a D&D thing." You,
Is
I don't.
that Bordinko? Is that who that
Yeah,
is?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know I don't know where to start. And he was like, "Oh, me and my buddies, we have a session. Let me see if I can get you like a temporary character, and I'll pull you in to check it out." And then he never did. So I'll just eternally just furious at Brian for never actually having me be a part of one of the sessions.
Well, Brian brings up a very interesting
Oh
thing,
shit!
which is
Which is what I said.
yeah, that Mandalorian feels like a D&D campaign. We talked about that on the last episode, right? We talked about Mandalorian, or it's 2 episodes ago. But yeah, it definitely has like a D&D feel to it, and the story and the episodes just kind of feel like these little like sessions of a longer D&D campaign.
Yeah,
The
that's
DM
that,
John
that's a
Favreau, the DM's like, "All right, I'm going to write this campaign where Mandalorian has to take a baby Yoda to somewhere. All right, now let me work on the first session. What are we going to do? All right.
it,
Let me set the characters.
it
Let's do this."
it feels very very much so like that. It's I with the one episode though to 2 episodes I watched. I do want to continue watching that season, that series. I was waiting for my kid to keep going through it. So I don't know if he's interested enough, but I could use it to spend some time with him. I know that Giancarlo is now in this latest episode, and badass things are happening around the world of Star Wars that I need to catch up on.
It's also making me Mandalorian is renewing my desire to push through Clone Wars, the animated series,
uh,
because every time I start it starts really slow, and everybody raves about that show, but I haven't pushed through to the part where it becomes outstanding. I'm not there yet, so I need to just get there because there's apparently a ton of lore and great stuff that directly is feeding into Mandalorian that I'm missing out on by not having seen it.
Yeah. Dave Maloney or whatever is Filoni, uh, buddies with old Favreau, directed a bunch of the stuff for that, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
and now he's in Mandalorian, so he's bringing a lot of that lore, and some of that lore is also from, and I said this about Disney way back when, in the sense that they they erased all of the extended universe
Yeah.
stuff, made it non-canon, and now there's like bringing in extra random canon shit, just reinserting it into the series here and there. uh the latest episode being an example of some of the characters that they're coming into. Anyways, what D&D, right?
D&D.
Talking about D&D. Yeah, so Brian D&D, and yeah, I we're in my campaign right now. My homebrew campaign. Uh, I was always attracted to it from uh Harmontown. The first couple times I listened to Harmontown, I thought like this is so cool. This kind of weird collaborative storytelling type thing. And so coming up with my homebrew, not tied to any specific like Curse of Strahd or Lost Mines of Phandalin or anything like that. Like something I came up with as far as story was interesting. So now we're finally like a year and some change later. We're getting towards the end of this campaign that I built up, and so the characters have the three characters, one played by Travis, one with our friend John, another Kevin. They have made their way to they made this way to this dungeon that is where the monitors of magic, these giants who are monitors of magic, are in, and you guys had to solve 8 different puzzle rooms in order to get 8 different magical artifacts, each one tied to a school of magic. And it started off last session. and then you spent the entire session this last time plus extra solving the rest of that dungeon and then getting to a fight at the end. So yeah, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about dying, Brandon. Is what I want to talk about. Because I will say, the dungeon that you created with all these puzzles was one of my favorite things that we've done collectively in D&D in terms of like something that we didn't just pull off a shelf and walk through, but something that you actually like pieced together and worked through all these different things. There were a lot of aspects to it where we had to use different skills and talents of our individual characters to kind of get through some of it, and it did encourage us to work together and do things. So I felt like working through the different rooms, it was a great opportunity for us as players to really like utilize our characters and do things like that, without falling back on like a crutch of using combat. We spent close to 4 hours going through this dungeon without a combat session at all. And the previous session had 0 combat in it either, I believe. Which I enjoy combat, but I don't feel like it's a must-do necessarily for us in our group. But once we cleared the dungeon and we get into this final area, you kind of railroaded us into some combat. Like it was like, it's gonna happen. Roll that initiative. I don't know if I could have rolled.
We can talk about that specifically if you want to talk about that now, or if you want to go into it later.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys made it through. You got all these puzzles. You got all the magical artifacts. You teleported to a different area of the dungeon, and eventually you come into like looks to be kind of a crypt, and there's a pedestal in the middle of the crypt. You go through a northern room, and there is a giant, like kind of decrepit looking giant that's coming at you, and it's coming at you, and it's talking at you like saying you know go away, shouldn't be here, and you guys are. My mistake here was giving you that opportunity to have any kind of conversation with him at the start, giving you that thought that you can talk your way out of this encounter.
Sure.
Because the end goal was always that encounter when it died to be able to have a conversation with you.
Oh, okay.
Because that being is I made it a wraith. And lore wise, the wraiths they are so focused on a goal that their hatred, their desire to reach that goal, like keeps them through death. So it shouldn't have given you the opportunity to talk in the first place, because its goal was to stop you from doing anything with the stone.
Yeah.
And so me having you roll was a mistake on my part for like your persuasion, because there was the only thing it did was like it was going to attack you. All it did was buy you a couple of extra seconds.
Sure.
Which
is fine. And
yeah. But you didn't know that. You couldn't have known that without me having told you extra, which maybe I should have, just be like, you know that. I don't know. Maybe I could have done that differently, but I could tell after the fight was over that you guys were trying to talk. You're giving him shit. You're like, it would have been nice if we could have talked about this before you tried killing us.
Yeah. I think I was doing that from beyond the grave, which I is to say, I'm a 5th level wizard at this point. Not super strong in my spells, because my character is modeled somewhat after Indiana Jones. He is an archaeologist, and many of the spells that I selected are for sort of dungeoneering, and finding lost treasure, finding, artifacts, things like that. So I have a lot of spells that are used for that mechanic of moving around dungeons and finding things, but are not great in combat. So I have a very limited sort of set of options in combat. And I I was weak. There were 5 giants fighting the 3 of us, and I happened to be in the middle of the room based on when we walked in. And so I started taking a brunt of the hits, and then and we had just come off of like another room where we had taken a bunch of psychic damage, and I didn't even heal myself up to full health because I was like, nah, we should be fine. We should be good. So I start taking serious damage. I cast mage armor to try and minimize the attacks. I cast a mirror image spell that I picked up so that I could minimize the likelihood of me actually getting hit. I was trying to do everything defensively that I could while still trying to, dish out some damage. But in the end, it wasn't enough, and I end up dying in the room. I fall down, I pass out, and it's time for death saves. So I roll my first death save, and it's a 1, which is a critical failure and counts as 2 fails. And then my second roll is a 2. So it was fundamentally meant to be that Montana James would not live to get out of there. And I gotta say, from a player perspective, it was a crazy feeling to have my character die, and all of the investment and things that I've done over the last year, like playing this character, trying to like kind of craft like his identity and his focuses, and I was like, all that's done. It's gone. I throw the character sheet away. It's over. I kept trying to listen in to the end of the fight and see what happened and stuff like that. But it was a really bizarre feeling because this was the first D&D character that I've had to actually die.
Yeah.
You joked about it as it was happening, like, congratulations, welcome to the club, because in our small group of 4 players, you are the only other person, I believe, to have a character die.
Yeah.
And it was like at the final session of our very first campaign that we ever played, where your character died at like against the big bad, I think.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was similar. Where I think I did. I think I may have done a critical one too. I think I still have the. I think I still have the screenshots from the roll, like where like I died at the very end there.
Yeah.
And and as a side note, like that, you talk about like the impact of death and stuff like that, and having that the spirit of that character being dead played a big role in the next campaign that you ran.
Yeah.
Which became a story point, which was really cool. But it's crazy that we haven't had that for a long time. Between you, between me, between John, the DM, the rotating DMs, that we don't do a lot of. There aren't a lot of deaths don't happen, and part of that for me is as we're in combat, we're in the middle of things. I want to make sure it stays fun, and I don't want it to seem unfair all the time. And so like sometimes I end up I'd pulled punches before because I'm like, well, this seems, not because like I feel like I'm being too unfair, but more so like I don't know if I balance this encounter well enough.
Did I carry a 1 incorrectly, and now all these guys are way harder than they should be?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why I'm like, especially at the start, where I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like they're this guy got Monty got hit by 30 points already. Like, oh, maybe I should make him a little bit
When I
weaker.
have a total of like 44 health points. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this time I'm like, no, you know what? You gotta let it. You gotta see how it goes, and don't don't pull don't pull punches. You did your research with trying to even things out here. Just let them see how they can do, and if they need to retreat, they can.
So let me tell you what I learned through that encounter, because I will say the idea of retreat legitimately didn't cross my mind. And I think in part it's because this was the first time where I was so critically hurt in a fight and didn't like end up coming through it and winning, at any other point as a player. So the idea like, oh crap, I gotta run away if I wanna live. It it honestly didn't I didn't think to do that. I thought, all right, maybe I can, do some of these things. Maybe I can take a health potion. Maybe I could like, but then just the way that the roles and the play went, I just it I I learned that, hey, maybe I should use some of those spells that I have that help me move quickly. Use those to get the heck out of there. So that was good. I took that as a benefit because I learned that, but it also really raised the stakes for me in terms of the way I think about combat in the game, and the way I just think about, hey, thank you, I am
Hey,
Kismet.
woo!
Thank you for the follow.
Woo,
Um,
woo,
yeah,
yeah, yes.
but it did. It really got me thinking differently about combat, about how I play the character, the stakes involved in combat, and it made me appreciate combat more. That it was difficult. I feel like when you pull punches or you have the balance to be a little bit easier, it makes combat feel more like a chore than a fun part of the game. I think
Yeah.
if when you
Uh-huh.
and this is a problem that I ran into a lot in the early games that I was running, where I'm like, all right, let me throw 6 sturges at you, and you guys like slice right through them, and then you're like, all right, cool, we got 10 gold or whatever, and it took an hour for us to roll through killing all those things. But in this case, like, this is a point where I have to like learn to play better. Like, I have to learn to like know my spells, know what they do, know what my actions are, know what my options are to actually navigate the situation, because I may not make it out of here if I don't play it correctly. And I feel like if the fight is balanced well, which I feel like this one was, I don't think it was like over balanced into your favor. I think if I had played it differently, done different things, I mean, ultimately the other two ended up killing the guy and ending it. I lost, but I mean, to that point where like Kevin was right there with a health potion ready to try and revive me. If I hadn't rolled a 1 on my first death save, it's possible he could have fixed me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. What I want to say about like the strategy of combat and actually like being uh
Thank you, Bordinko, for the subscription.
hey,
You're a
woo,
hero.
woo, yeah. Uh, you only get half because you still have never invited me into a session, right? Uh, but the like a strategy behind combat is something that we haven't done very well just collectively.
Sure.
All the last one shot that John did, where my brother and I were both frogs, poisonous frogs,
Yeah.
and then we got to the end of the thing. You were some kind of being, and Kevin was some kind of other being, right? And Brett and I were beaten, like monk frogs, the Marcio brothers, beating the shit out of the main thing, and we were like this tree thing or whatever it was kept like spawning new monsters up. And at some point in time, I was so hurt, and then I had to leap away, and I was like, I'm gonna get attack of opportunity done on me, but I've got to leap away. And I I made that risk, knowing that if he hit me again, then I would be dead. So
Yeah.
I hopped away. Brett stayed there and kept bidding on the monster. Uh, the monster who kept spawning new things, and you and Kevin were off to the left, and you're still fighting the mobs that it was spawning, and I was thinking like it's good that you're killing that thing, but this is the thing that keeps respawning that like for two times now has respawned more monsters. Like this should be our focus, and I probably should have.
Which in character you could have been like,
Hey,
target this thing,
yeah,
guys,
yeah,
aim for this. That's where I think another area where we kind of fall short is how we communicate together
yeah.
and fight together in combat. I think we get too hung up in this mechanic that like each turn has to be 6 seconds.
6 seconds,
You can only do this, and
no more. No,
am I allowed to talk to anyone? Like, where the exact other extreme of that is like in Harmontown, where they roughly use turns. Like they're like and they're just like throwing stuff out there, and then Spencer's kind of like seeing if it works within the rules that he's used. So I think that there is some wiggle there where we can be like, hey, aim over here, hey, do this, like, hey, come with me and let's target this guy. That obviously, if you're fighting something, you can yell something to your companions
yeah,
at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah.
That just makes sense logically. Um,
Rule of cool always overrides. Yeah,
absolutely.
true.
So speaking of the rule of cool, I go through the stages of grief for Montana James. I dabbed him and accept the fact that, all right, I'm gonna have to either create a new character or something's gonna have to happen. And then Brandon, how exactly did you remind them that there were elements within the?
Yeah. So after Kevin and John had killed the main wraith, known as Haywood Jablomi, the giant
Classic.
Haywood Jablomi. Matt left the chat already. Otherwise, he would hear his shout out. Once he killed the wraith, his spirit left, and it was a calm spirit. But he still talked to the alive adventurers, and was like saying like, hey, I'm trying to stop you because this isn't what you think it is, and you're basically kickstarting the big bad end guy's evil plans to resurrect his dragon's brood. And in that, like, they're like, well, you just killed our friend. How do you expect us to stop him? And the ghost of the giant explains to mentions to them like, bringing him back, you've already experienced some of the puzzles in this dungeon in order to kind of negate his death. That mechanic already exists within the dungeon.
Yep.
And so that was the hint to the players. And essentially, again, talking about the 8 magical items, necromancy is one of the schools of magic, and abjuration is another one of the schools of magic. And there in the necromancy puzzle room, there's a jar where your spirit can possess other things. So that was like the first thing they thought of. But then there's another room, this other puzzle room that I had put together, where there's 4 different scrolls. There's a scroll that blocks a thought shield, so their minds couldn't be read. Magic missile shield, so they couldn't get hit by magic missile. An anti-death scroll, which in order for them to get through a wall, they had to read the scroll. The wall would instant kill them, which would suck unless they'd read the scroll. And then there's a fourth scroll, which was uh, I forget what the spell is called, but it would bring them back to life.
Yeah.
Well, that that was the ad lib version of being like I as a DM I know this mechanic exists.
Which it's funny because as we solved that puzzle, we did it so methodically that none of us screwed up and died in that room and needed to use the negate death scroll.
Yeah.
So it was unfortunately due to our immense cunning and sharp wit that we got through
And
that
risk-
without using.
And risk aversion, I'll say.
Yes, absolutely. As we're all like walking together and passing scrolls between each other. Yeah. But yeah, and so it was one of those scrolls that would negate death, and ultimately, after the Aarakocra carried my corpse back up,
Yeah.
they recited the scroll and were able to revive Montana James. And
Yeah, there's two aspects for me that I feel about that. One is that like I wasn't happy to kill you off, but I was okay. Like you got killed off. The other part was, well, I didn't want to. Well, sorry, it's, the same part of that is like I didn't want to negate the stakes of that, and come up with a haphazard way of resurrecting Montana James. The second half of that was, well, I know I've already established those pieces of lore, whether or not the players or the adventurers themselves know that all of that exists yet.
yeah,
I know it. I know it exists, and so it's not cheesy or cheap for me to bring that up to them, as Hey, would you blow me would bring it up.
yeah.
So yeah. So now you're back. Now you're back to life.
I'm back.
Does that change anything? Like, does it feel cheap to you?
Cheapens my death.
Yeah.
No. Honestly, the lessons that I learned in that 30 minutes as a dead D&D player will stick with me for a lifetime, or at least until I kill off another character. It definitely impacted decisions that I made in choosing spells in my because we did level up apparently. And yeah, I think it changes a lot of my perspective in terms of like how I feel about combat, how I feel about running games if I'm a DM, how I feel about balancing combat, and just decisions that I would make in our next session if we're fighting something. So yeah, I think it was all valuable stuff. I really enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful that it happened. And honestly, I was very content with the idea that Monty was dead, and the idea that, you know what, that character existed for a period of time. He had an impact, and then this is how he went out. And how Travis, how I get to interact with this campaign in the future, whether that's through another character or whatever happens, like, cool, I'll embrace that opportunity. But I had just watched the last 2 seasons of Community the day before, which included, a second Dungeons and Dragons episode. And in that episode, Shirley's character is killed very early in the game, and she just kind of drops her character sheet and leaves the apartment. And I was like, you know what? Sometimes that's how it goes, right? Like sometimes your character dies and you're not in the game anymore. Like, and the fact that this has been a game that we've been playing for a year, yeah, that's kind of a big deal. But all right, well, what does that mean? Maybe, the what's the professor?
Professor Kuiper.
No, the guy from the Keystone Academy that I always reference.
Yeah.
Maybe the guy that I studied under ends up coming and looking for me, or whatever. Like, I was like, all right, maybe we can work this a different way, right? But we don't have to because I'm alive again. So so it's fine.
Yeah, I sometimes talk to John about being the only person who's died, and you know it's probably one of those things where you don't know how you're going to react to your character dying until it happens. Um, I I was fortunate enough to get killed off very early in our D
In
and D
our very
careers.
first exposure to D&D sort of.
To where I don't want to where I don't want to die. But if it happens, I'll be like, well, it's not my problem figuring out how I'm gonna get back in the game. That's on.
That's the
that's on,
DM's problem now.
yeah, exactly right. But I John has always said he doesn't he he would rather it play the way it's supposed to play out, as far as if he's gonna die, he's gonna die. If he's not, he's not. Um, but yeah, the last thing I'll say about that fight is that Ray Haywood had some good abilities that just happened to land, that really helped, that really kind of handcuffed the three of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, being successful with the fear against John's character, making John's character take the dash action and try to get away from all the time, and attacking with disadvantage. Plus, anytime that Haywood got attacked, he kept passing his concentration save. So, like, John kept having to run away. The hold person, which was cast on Kevin's character, made him paralyzed, and just I think I think I fucked up a little bit because he should have kept rolling the damage at as a crit, but because he was resistant to slashing damage, I kept having to half that, and so I just kept being like, at most he takes 5 damage every time. It probably would have taken more damage had I done the math correctly, but still, like, that went against you guys, and also John rule lawyering in the background, which I'm not opposed to. He's helpful in that way, but also sometimes it goes against you guys.
Yeah.
And then yeah, then two of them trying to attack you. Like, it was a storm, and you guys were taking out those zombies really, really, really fast, and I was like, well, cool, great. There's another mismatched encounter. And then when the hold person and the fear worked, and then everyone started getting their asses kicked, I was like, oh shit, no, maybe this is the opposite of that.
Yep.
And you guys pulled it off. It was with Kevin's character getting knocked out briefly as well.
Yeah, it really did look like Kevin and I were both gonna be dead at the end of that fight for a period of time, and fortunately that wasn't the case. But it was this could have been detrimental to the campaign, but it worked out, and it was a lot of fun. It was easily the longest single session that we'd ever played. Usually we start playing pretty late into the evening. We end up like playing really late. We get tired. So this was the first time we started in an afternoon where none of us really had too much going on that day. So it was like, yeah, let's just keep plugging away. Which I don't know. I understand the argument now of just doing like an 8-hour session like once a month or something, and just committing to it, and because it's a marathon, but then it's like, yeah, you really get through some stuff.
Yeah. Well, you guys made it through all the puzzles, and then I was like, do you want to take a break now? Do you want to call it here, and then we'll come back next week to do the rest of it? And you're like, no, let's keep going. And that took another 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that happened over the course of the session, but I think it was best that we did keep going, because you would have come into this next session this coming week and been like, okay, what are we doing? What are we trying to do?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Like why are we in this room? Okay, well let me recap. Like, okay, why are we fighting this guys?
All right, giant fight. Like starting like right at the beginning. Yeah. It
Yeah.
felt like a good kind of conclusion to the session because we had been doing all those puzzles. This was like a big combat to kind of wrap it all together. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And now you guys know where the story is going, and that these stones that you've been activating are dragon hearts, and they're like, okay, well now this is the Act 3, the towards the end of the story circle, um, getting to, well, there is a big bad end guy that you still don't know exactly who it is, but I'm sure you can make assumptions, uh, deductions based off of that. A dragon is trying to bring back something, his brood, his or
Yeah.
her brood. I don't know, they're asexual.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, it was
Yeah,
great, man.
it was a great session. I learned a lot. I had a ton of fun. Yeah, it's D&D, man. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Thank you for running that session and building this whole one shot. I don't say this to say you're doing a bad job or anything, because I think you're doing a fantastic job. But I feel like once we have completely concluded the Desert of Arayu, I feel like we need just like a pre-written, like off the shelf campaign where we can just kind of like sit back and just like let someone else do that like lore world building, and we just get in there and just like go ham on it. But
I'm not opposed to that in any way, shape, or form. I think that is fun stuff too, especially for folks who haven't experienced it. We still have the Rick and Morty one we got to do.
It's sitting right there.
I want I want
Sitting right
I want to
there.
do Curse of Strahd eventually. Everyone always talks about that. And yeah, like I eight different puzzles, half of which I took inspiration from, well, five of which I took inspiration of from other people to tailor it towards the theme, which I was like, okay, all right, I know better now. Like some of them, like you guys blazed through like easily. Part of that was luck. Part of it was risk aversion. Um, but I saw where like hints could help push you, but not give you the answer. And then other ones is like, well, this is too easy. This was easier. It should have been a little bit harder. Like the Abacus room, that was straightforward. There should have been more red herrings in there a little bit. The one that I was most proud about, and it didn't. I'm still really really proud about it, even though it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. The music room was what I'm most proud about. And for those listening, the music room was for transmutation magic. And the whole idea was they walk into this room, there's a piano in front of a giant black painting. And every time they press a note, each note is tied to a change in the painting. E is earth, so it's like farmland. C is cold, so snow. D is daylight and darkness. A is aqua, or water, right? Rain. And so
I at no point realized that the letters of the notes were tied to the meaning of. I mean, I knew that certain notes had certain meanings.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize it was based on the letter. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
That's okay, because you still understood that whenever you pressed a key, something happened to the painting, even if you didn't make that direct tie. And then there's a sheet of music on the thing, and so the answer was, they have to. The title of the music was the transformative properties of music, whatever. And the idea was they had to get it sequentially to where it's the black painting turned into daylight, and then the rain came down, landing on the farmland, which would then affect a seed, which would then grow, and then then dusk would happen, darkness, and that's a circle. What my I pulled a bunch of different concepts and tried to put them in this one puzzle, and so like musically, I'm like, okay, well, what notes sound good together? What collection of notes sound together in a circle? And so then I came up with DAEGD. Uh, but what that kind of pigeonholed me into was a cycle that doesn't really make sense as far as farming goes. Like it should have been like, okay, well it's daylight, and then you see the farmland, and then you see the seed, and then the rain comes down, and then maybe then it grows. Right? There's a few different ways you can do this, but it wasn't necessarily intuitive how the circle of life went. But for me, I'm like, okay, I went on GarageBand, and I made music, and I had my phone on me, and so whenever somebody would press a new note, I'd press the note, and then it would play some music. And every time they said a different note, I'd press that note, it would change the music. And when eventually they solved the puzzle, then I pressed play for a pre-recorded uh, composition that I'd put together with violins and drums and stuff like that.
I
To
will
get
say that
a completion.
the musical bits that you were playing with them and how they changed as they were playing the different notes and stuff, just just the icing on the cake of an already immersive D&D experience. Like that was really cool.
So I'm super proud about it, although it wasn't the best puzzle. I think I could do better on it, but I still was like, I'm still like, man, that was a good idea. That was a good idea.
Yeah, no, it was good stuff. I mean, I'll shoot it out there because there's still several of you watching. But if you guys are into D&D, if you have recommendations for things that we could be doing, things that you've learned, from past D&D experience, we jokingly call ourselves the D&D noobs. That's sort of how we started. But I mean, that was almost 3 years ago now, right? Like, or at least 2. So we've definitely been playing for a while, and we've recorded it, we've streamed it at times. So we're not exactly noobs anymore, although we still struggle with basic mechanics on a regular basis. So yeah, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, I should send them this stuff, shoot it to us at Apathetic Enthusiasm show@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media. We like talking about it. Or drop it in the chat on iTunes, or not iTunes, on YouTube or Twitch. And we like talking about that stuff. So
Brian, DM me, baby.
Slide up in them DMs. It is Thanksgiving week here in the United States, so happy Thanksgiving to anyone still watching. Hopefully you're being safe. If your plans have changed and you are riding solo this Thanksgiving, or with a smaller group, thank you for doing that. Thank you for thinking of others. And maybe I don't know, we're gonna stream a holiday gift, Rick and Morty holiday gift guide.
Next week.
So next week, we'll be in peak holiday shopping time. So if you want a Rick and Morty present for yourself or for somebody that you shop for, make sure to check that out. We'll be curating and recommending some Rick and Morty merch.
Be sure to check it out.
Check it out. Hopefully we can get another surprise or two in there as well. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Any final thoughts, Brandon?
My final thought is I talked about Justin Roiland and the Butterbot. He had the Trick or Treat shirt on in the Butterbot reveal video unboxing.
Mm-hmm.
and this is a trick or treat shirt as well from the same company, Cavity Colors. We talked about this last week. I was like, "Oh, I have that shirt." Oh no, I don't have that shirt. I have a different one. This is the shirt I have. Love
There you
it.
go. Way to bring it back for the
And it matches the Dolphins layout, so it's really good.
There you go.
Hey,
Which by the way, I guess this officially would be the end of the podcast and therefore the end of the Dolphins layout. So we'll if you're new here, this is more along the lines of what we actually look like on a regular basis. Usually there's one of these here too. And what else? What else did I have to turn off to make this thing work? So anyway, this is more of what we actually look like. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for putting up with those bright oranges and teals. Yeah, but this looks stale and dreary compared to.
It does. You should update it.
I think I might. And shoot, I've got time. So, yeah, maybe we'll get an update to the layout. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys for being awesome. And
hey, we'll see you next week if you like Rick and Morty for our gift guide. Otherwise, we'll see you in